Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And we are back yet another week of talking about stuff. Baseball's back. Before we got too far into it, Kason, I was going to show off I have the shirt. If you hear any noise, it's just me and the boys popping, made famous
Hmm.
by Pittsburgh Pirate Dave Parker back in the day. So obviously decked out. We're going to get into some baseball. We are going to talk about some updates and things like that. But Kason, you had a suggestion of how we should open this show. Why don't you say what it is?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think we can probably open the show with a little bit of a short six pack here.
We haven't done one of these
Um,
in a
we
while.
haven't done it in a long time. This is an off season thing here
Mm-hmm.
from football because usually when the NFL's in season we have a lot to talk about because we both like to go really in depth in that. And so we're gonna bring back the six packs every once in a while during the off season. And so I managed to get some stuff. There's a really, really big theme.
Real quick,
If
time out. Let's remind everybody what short six pack even is. Basically, Kason finds random news stories and presents them to me blind right on the recording. That's essentially what this is. Um,
Yes.
and
So
I'm and
I
I'm
I
always a little bit
find
I'm always a little bit nervous just because I'm always a little bit worried. Like we keep our show professional, and I'm always a little bit worried you're going to pick something that that is not going to be professional.
yeah.
But then I remember we edit our show, so it's fine.
Yeah. 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 So I never go into that territory.
No, no.
So they're usually sports business related, sometimes,
Pop culture
pop
sometimes
culture type of stuff.
where
Um
where our show intersects.
Yeah, yeah. And so I've got about five that have a major recurring theme with
Hmm,
sports, and then the sixth one is really not related to anything we normally talk about, but it's just a crazy story that I heard you probably that I'm not sure if you've seen yet or not. But anyway, so these are headlines basically that you may or may not have seen, but stuff that I picked out that I wanted to discuss.
sure.
So starting out we're something that we talked about a year ago when this guy first came into our lives. Uh, the the brand new owner of the Phoenix Suns, Matt Ishbia.
Okay.
We talked about at the time when he acquired the Suns. There, the previous owner was a bit problematic, and so the league forced him to sell, or urged, whatever you want to say.
I do remember this.
Um, And so Matt Ishbia, who was allegedly, I guess, some sort of mortgage guy, he has a very long-standing feud with Dan Gilbert because they have like rival mortgage companies.
Hmm.
So Matt Ishbia is currently under investigation for massive, widespread fraud related to his mortgages.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I don't know. I haven't actually gotten the chance to like look into every detail of the story, but from what I can gather, there was a lot of suspect stuff, and I'm willing to bet this guy randomly somehow being able to afford $4.5 billion for the Phoenix Suns tripped some things with the federal investigators like, hey, how did this guy get his money? And where did it come from? And it's like, oh well, he committed fraud to get it. So
Where did $4 billion come from?
yeah, and so from what I'm seeing, a lot of the discourse around this is like, yeah, it kind of does make sense that some guy we've never heard of is
Yeah.
somehow a multi-billionaire to where he can afford the Phoenix Suns.
Uh,
And it definitely makes sense as to why this guy absolutely hates Dan Gilbert and why Dan Gilbert hates this guy. Because like Dan Gilbert must have known that this guy was,
doing things
scamming people
potentially
or
illegal.
yeah. So
Well, the
it
moral of
just
this
put a pin in that because the Phoenix Suns might be up for sale again.
soon. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, it makes me think about there's a 30 for 30 on him, but the John Spano situation where he didn't really have the money to pay for the Islanders, back in like the 90s whenever that happened.
Hmm.
Um this sounds like a situation where it's like, yeah, that money might be legit, but maybe it wasn't obtained through legal means. So
Yeah,
we'll keep our
yeah.
eyes on that one.
Yeah, put a pin in that one because that'll be something to watch for sure.
Solid.
Uh and then I'm gonna move this one to la or to well, we'll talk about it now. So the second one is a big story. We should probably get into it
Hmm.
because there's a lot to discuss.
Okay.
Are you aware of uh the Last Dive Bar? Do you
Oh,
know what that is?
I think I am aware of
So
what this is.
so there are like three different stories I'm rolling into one, and this main because a lot of this stuff happened today.
Interesting.
So this whole talking point, the second one is just the Oakland Athletics.
Which is Thursday, by the way. This will be out for your Friday.
Yeah, so this is 5 o'clock on Thursday.
Hmm.
Uh and so the Oakland Athletics, uh the first thing that I wanted to bring up about this was there's this I don't know if it's a company specifically, or it's a website that's a group of Oakland Athletics fans that's called the Last Dive Bar, and they're basically celebrating the Oakland Coliseum. They're doing everything they can to protest the team moving to Las Vegas, and there were a handful of Oakland A's players who were supporting this, and they were wearing these bracelets that said Last Dive Bar on them.
Yes.
And there were some media photos that were taken of them wearing this bracelet. And every player that has publicly worn this bracelet has either been like released, moved down, traded. Like there was this guy who I think was batting like over like around 300, or he was like over 250,
Yeah, he was like
and
their
he and,
best
and he
hitter.
and he got sent down to AAA
Yeah, I mean,
like randomly.
what's interesting is obviously the whole story with the A's. We've covered it. We've talked about it. It's super sad what's happening, especially for the city of Oakland and the A's fans. They ultimately are going to move to Vegas. And the news came out on Thursday today that this is going to be their last season in Oakland. They're moving to. They're going to play in like a minor league ballpark in Sacramento for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, so that was
Um,
the other part of the
yeah,
headline, was that they're going to be playing in a minor league ballpark in Sacramento starting next year.
which I'm
And
under the impression of, man, I mean, I know moves take a long time, but like they're not going to be in Vegas till like 2028. I mean, that's
yeah,
4 years
so
from now. Like,
so the other part of this that I also was going to bring up,
yeah,
The Tropicana closed this week. It is done. It is closed. The 70-year-old casino is closed for business,
okay.
and is getting ready to be demolished for the site to be
For the A's new
prepped, and then
ballpark.
they're going to break ground. Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you've ever for clarification, if you didn't know, for anybody that's been in Las Vegas, the Tropicana is where that park is going to be.
Gotcha.
So right there on the strip, kind of right by the Luxor and MGM Grand and stuff. So really interesting. Again, I know we talked about it last year when all this stuff really was heating up, when like the news broke and was getting finalized. But the city is still actively trying to stop them coming.
Yeah.
There are still tons of people amongst the city trying to like prevent them from coming.
Vegas,
And
really
so yeah, oh yeah,
interesting.
I have family that lives there.
Yes.
None of them want them to be there. They don't know
Wow.
anyone who wants them there. Like this is I think his name's John Fisher. This guy is moving his team to a city that does not want them, and actively like spitting in the face of a fan base that is clamoring to keep their team.
That is so interesting. I mean, I find it more interesting that Vegas does not want a baseball team, does not want
So
the A's,
from what
than it
I
is that
can
he wants to
gather,
move. That's very fascinating.
the
Yeah.
state is giving him a bunch of money to put the team there, but the
Mm.
city absolutely does not want them there.
Hmm. I don't know a whole lot about Vegas in general. I've seen, obviously I've known people like yourself and others who have had ties to it, but I know Vegas over its history has had a kind of a reputation of not always necessarily treating like the citizens of the area the best. Like, because everything is focused around tourism and the casinos and the strip and all stuff. That's what Vegas is known for. I mean, I get that. What I do, this is one of those situations where it's like, if you were listening to the people there, you'd move the A's somewhere else. If you want to move them, move them.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the
I mean, did they want
the
the
the,
Raiders
the
when they moved?
they I mean, to an extent, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're being told the Oakland Athletics are moving to town, and by the way, you're paying $1 billion for their
Oh,
stadium.
there it is.
Like
There it
like
is.
they're they're being forced to foot the bill for the stadium they don't want because I also think that it's not a baseball town. I mean, they
Mm.
technically have a minor league team. I think they still do. I don't know if they I don't know for
Yeah,
sure they
like
still
the
do,
Vegas
but
51ers or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
They they had a minor league team or have one, but it's just kind of like baseball is played in the summer. For anybody who doesn't know, it is 110 degrees in Las Vegas in the
Oh yeah,
summer.
that you that like they are not putting a stadium there that is not going to have a retractable roof. I'm telling you that right now.
Like that's the point. And so it's just kind of like hockey went there. I don't know for sure the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that like the city didn't really pay, the citizens didn't really foot the bill for that quite.
No.
I mean, and so I think they were like, okay, cool,
But
whatever, like you're
for
paying
what
for
it's
it.
worth, because I do want to say this, I felt like the actual handling of Vegas. I mean, it's already worked out, right? They've won a Stanley Cup, but I actually thought that the addition of Vegas in the NHL handled it very, very well. I felt the same way about when they brought in the Kraken. So
Right, right, and so the expansion teams I think are a little less dicey because you're not like stealing a team from somebody,
right, it's a
and
new team.
so and so I think Las Vegas to a certain extent didn't. I think they did kind of feel bad about stealing the Raiders when they did because they were like this. I think
But
it is a dramatic thing.
at the same time, it is the NFL coming to your city.
Right,
Like
right. And so
that's a different. Yeah.
I think the brand of the NFL and the fact that like it's eight to nine games,
Hmm.
like it's 8 to 9 games, whatever. I don't know for sure how much of that was funded by the city either. I don't know, but I mean, if they had to fund a lot of that $2 billion Death Star that's in the middle of the desert, I don't think they're going to be lining up to pay another $1 billion for a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like nobody seems like along with the fact of nobody seems to care about baseball in Las Vegas. Like
Right.
baseball itself is not a growing industry.
Yeah.
And so
We'll see what happens. The A's are gonna move. I think that it's pretty much set in stone unless there's some sort of drastic new development. You almost would like to see like a Columbus Crew type thing happen, right? Where baseball steps in, they get a deal done in Oakland, the A's stay put,
yeah.
and then they give Vegas an expansion team or something. But we'll see. Um, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. That's fascinating. It's another story.
It's again, I mean, we talked about it a lot, but like there's just continuing developments of just like the of like this is just not going to work out for anybody involved because there's going to be nobody at these games. Like you're like I don't know how you fit or how you have a population the size of that like doesn't care about baseball, fill a stadium for, what,
I'll
80
tell you what,
games? Like I don't
I can see it very much being like an LA Chargers situation where the A's play their home games in Vegas, but there's always more fans of the other team, especially considering they're in the AL West. Like,
Yeah,
like
oh yeah. I mean,
Astros fans, Rangers fans are gonna just
that's a
sand them
hundred
at
percent.
like,
That's 100% going to be it. Like you're going to
yeah.
have people say, "Let's go to Las Vegas for this 3 game
Oh yeah,
series."
for the weekend and just
Yeah,
root for our guys to demolish the A's.
right. That's exactly what it's going to
We're
be.
just
Is
gonna
that
take it.
it's
It's gonna be yeah. That is how it's gonna go. That is how it's gonna be if well, based on what you're seeing. So
whatever. I mean, I don't. I
it's a wild industry, man.
it's crazy. It is. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's just kind of crazy to see this owner
Hey,
like.
all I gotta say is keep fighting the good fight, A's fans.
Yeah, I mean, I
Hey,
absolutely. I mean, as a Browns fan,
yeah,
I absolutely hate to see this.
yeah. I
So
just take it to anybody. Imagine your team. The very idea. I shudder because it's been floated around, especially during the Pirates' bad years of them moving and other stuff. But in my lifetime, the only team in Pittsburgh that almost actually did move was the Penguins. Um,
mhm.
and you hate to see it happen. You know,
Not to go down a deep rabbit hole, but I
sure,
don't know. Have you seen the Blackberry movie with Glenn Howerton?
no,
So it's about the BlackBerry and stuff, and Glenn Howerton plays the guy who is a CEO of Research in Motion / BlackBerry, and he was the guy who was trying to buy the Penguins. They kind of like changed some stuff because he don't I don't think he ever really got that close to buying the Penguins, but he almost bought and moved the Preds.
Oh wow.
Um and he like was buying an arena, and then he was like lying to the NHL about him moving them.
Yeah, it
And
was
then
like
once he was like buying the arena uh in Canada, they were like, "Dude, are you moving the team?" And he's like, "Why does that matter to you?" Like, you're
no.
not. Yeah, yeah. He's like, "No, I
Of
know."
course I'm not. It says here you just bought a whole bunch of property in this city, and about like yeah, it's like 100 square blocks of like city property. Are you building
Yeah.
something? No, we're not. We're not.
But it anyway, I
I
go
got you.
watch that because it's a really good movie.
Why don't you check it out?
Anyway, so that's that. So we'll keep you posted on any future updates about the A's and
We'll
stuff.
be here to
But
talk about it.
the only thing is, I guess they're literally just going to be called the Athletics for the next 3 years. Like
Yeah,
they're not Sacramento. They're just the Athletics or the
yeah.
A's.
I that this is going to be just such a strange thing, and
It's going to be basically the Washington football team of baseball
yeah, and
teams.
honestly, I kind of feel bad for the guys who are there right now, especially if you're in the prime of their career. I'm not gonna name names, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, they got legitimate guys that like that are they have legit guys there who are not going to be a part of like that when they're starting to actually try to win again, whether it's in
Hmm.
Vegas or whatever. So, um, yeah, Sacktown. They're people probably will call them the Sacramento Athletics though for a little bit.
I mean, I don't know why they don't just go by California. Like maybe just the
That's what people
California
were saying,
A's.
like the
Yeah.
California
Mhm.
A's. I would put a location in front just for the branding purposes of it,
Yeah.
but I don't own the team,
Um
so
anyway. Uh and then the next one I had here was, again, there's a very common theme here.
yeah.
Kansas City.
Okay,
So the city of Kansas City had basically a ballot initiative that was an increased, I think it was sales tax to fund new stadiums for both the Chiefs and the Royals.
interesting.
And it failed miserably. Like it the citizens of Kansas City basically said, go build your own stadiums to the owners of the Royals and the Chiefs.
Interesting.
So
How old are those stadiums?
um I don't know for sure about the Royals, but the Chiefs I think is um at least probably 60 years old, but I know they've dumped a ton of money into it.
True, true, and it's obviously it's got its own reputation with especially how good the Chiefs are now.
I would
Um,
imagine they want a dome. I would imagine the Chiefs are a team that wants a dome.
and Kauffman Stadium, where the Royals play, was built in 1973. So honestly, like that's probably in a
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
where you could probably start saying, okay, wear and tear, like we need a new building.
Yeah.
So so they
Um,
shot it down though. That's
and
so
they had ads running with, you know, Kelsey and Mahomes and Andy Reid and some Royals players, and they had them saying, vote yes on this initiative, and it failed miserably.
wow. Hmm.
Um, and I mean, and basically, from what I can tell, it sounds like the Hunts are threatening moving the team out of Kansas City.
Yep.
They're
Classic ownership
yeah.
move.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, the mayor of Dallas was like, move back to here. Dallas can support two teams. But the logic is them moving like 20 minutes away to some other municipality that would pay them more. But
It's funny to
yeah.
me that even in video games, like you can move the team now. It's like even our escapism entertainment is trying to move my team out of my
Yeah,
city.
yeah. When I'm doing like a Madden, I do like the Jags or something, and I move
Yeah,
them somewhere. Like I think I did one where I moved them to like Australia,
yeah.
and yeah. Mhm.
Oh man, I will say this like classic playbook on this. What's the number one way a sports owner of some kind can pressure a city government to getting what they are, threaten to move the team? It's a tale as old as time. Which stories like this that we are going to continue seeing in American professional sports throughout our lives, Casen, are exactly why what happened with the Crew is remarkable. Um, one of the best stories in all of sports. I've continued to say what happened to the Columbus Crew, um, and success stories because they're just elite now. Best team in
Yeah.
MLS by far.
Which we'll circle back to that here in a
Okay.
second. So put a pin in that. But yeah, so uh keep an eye on the Chiefs. I obviously with all of the Super Bowl success and just how high profile the Chiefs as a brand are.
Yeah, that.
It's something to keep an eye on. Um, I mean they should probably just ask Travis's girlfriend for some arena money if they
Yeah, yeah. If they think about it in terms of like, hey, listen, we're not just building we're not just building a place for Travis and Patrick and the boys to keep playing, but for Taylor to have concerts in. You got to
Yeah,
think of it
yeah.
that way.
Taylor should have a residency in this
sell,
place.
sell out. I have no doubt that that's already probably the case. But
Anyway,
anyway, yeah, yeah.
so then again with a very similar theme, the Browns.
Oh boy,
So I think it was last week where the ownership meetings, or in with the annual meetings and stuff down in Orlando or wherever it was.
Brown's been trying to get a new stadium too, right? That's kind of
So
been in the news.
yes, so there was a conversation during an interview with the Haslams, and it was basically said that the Haslams can get or they could spend $1 billion to completely renovate the current stadium and try and make that as modern as they can, or they could spend $2 billion and build a brand new dome at a different site.
It's interesting because I always thought about this in terms of a city's geography because similar to Chicago, it's there's only so many directions you can go. It's not like a situation like they're right up against Lake
Right.
Erie, so you can't go out that direction. So you have to, if you're going to build a new stadium, you have to go opposite of the water, obviously. Um, and I had that whole conversation with someone like a year or so, whenever the Bears news was coming out.
Right, right. When
Like
the
we
whole
talked about that,
Arlington Heights conversations, yeah.
which is still very much in dispute, by the way. That there was,
Right.
about a month ago, that was like a news story. Um, I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Well, and so essentially, I think I did bring it up a couple months ago, but the Haslams did purchase like almost 200 acres of land in Brook Park, which is right by the airport. Um, and so that's when all the speculation came out, and so that was where this conversation was sort of guided during the ownership meetings, and it was heavily implied that the Haslam's primary desire would be to relocate the arena or stadium to Brook Park with a dome, and because they want to be able to have Super Bowls,
Yeah,
Final Fours, and men's Final Fours,
right.
and
They got
stuff
one
in
this weekend.
Cleveland.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
women's is great.
so uh I don't. I mean, the conversation is more or less like they basically wanted um the city of Cleveland or Brook Park or whatever they're basically asking for the city or county whatever to give them $1 billion.
Give us $1 billion.
So they're basically saying like we'll pay like I the way I interpreted that was like we'll pay $1 billion if you give us another $1 billion so we can build this brand new stadium that's a dome that can
For $2
bring
billion.
right. And so it's a big conversation. But the more dramatic thing was that a Cleveland City Council member went on the internet this week, I think it was Monday, uh, and he basically made some statement to the effect of, "We're going to use the law that we passed after Art Modell stole the team to go to Baltimore to prevent you from moving to Brook Park. And if you try to do this, we will force you to sell the team."
Wow. I mean,
Like
like I love
it
how
was like dude, wait,
I
it
love
was
how the Cleveland, like it's like throwing a pebble. He like threw a sledgehammer through a window. It was like he
for
escalated it. It's like immediately we're not even getting to the point where we're in a situation where the Browns might move again.
For anybody that's curious,
Preemptive strike.
uh, it is. Let me get the numbers here
I got you.
specifically. It is 16 minutes from Cleveland Brown Stadium to Cleveland Hopkins International, basically, which is where that the new site would be. It is 16 minutes away.
Interesting.
There's a lot of conversation to be had about the effects of moving it from outside of a downtown area and moving it more suburban. Like I where the stadium formerly known as Heinz Field is a really cool place right there on the river and
Pirates right down
uh
the road.
yeah, and there's a
North
ton
Shore.
of, and it's right off the tee, and so that's a really great place.
Yep.
But being at the Brown Stadium, like parking and traffic is a nightmare.
Again,
And
I was going to say, don't make me go on another rant about how if you told me that we're going to build an absolute Steelers metroplex, like up in Cranberry somewhere where all the athletes live, I'd be like, sign me up for that. Make a
yeah, I
whole
mean, and the other thing too is
absolutely.
this, yeah, for
I'm okay with
this
that.
this place would be another 15 minutes closer to Berea,
Yeah,
like where the training facility is.
build a whole
Like
build a whole plaza there, build bars,
for
restaurants,
anybody that doesn't know, like
hotels.
Berea, where the Browns practice and stuff, is like close to 45 minutes away from the stadium.
Hmm,
Like it is not close.
right.
It like so
So,
it's
oh,
a
so
bit
you're
of an
saying it would be
issue.
better for your employees too?
Yeah,
Interesting.
right. Yeah, and
I mean,
because people live like the employees and stuff live closer to Berea.
yeah.
Or I think most of them anyway, because they work in Berea. But anyway,
And you said that's in the direction of the Cleveland suburbs?
it's sort of like if you look, it's from where the stadium is on the lake,
Mm-hmm.
it's southwest.
Okay.
So it's a little bit southwest. Anybody that knows it, the projected site, I don't know for sure where exactly it is related to the airport, but the projected site is right by Interstate 71, uh, which would make traffic super easy
Oh yeah.
getting there and stuff. And so they want to build that whole thing up. Like they want to put tons of, there's nothing there now, but they want to develop the whole area to be hotels, restaurants,
Absolute
and they would want to make it like an entertainment mecca
home
for
of the
the state.
Browns, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it is what it is. I as a Browns fan, I mean, we talked about it at the time, like when the story came out, I would be all for it because it's an arms race in the NFL,
Oh
and
yeah.
we're moving towards everybody needing a dome just because it's an offensive league, and you can't have offense if you play on a lake in the winter.
And
Like,
Super Bowls.
yeah,
But also, I mean, the idea of having we sat on this show and we've talked about how cool the Raiders and Stadium and SoFi are in LA, right?
hmm
I think everybody says, "Hey, why on earth can't we do that here?" Especially in Chicago. I mean, they need to do that. Chicago being third big market, it's makes sense to do that in Cleveland. I mean, it would be a very cool statement by the
I mean,
Browns
I
or
mean, I,
Haslam's and
I'm
all that.
also as someone from here, like I'm picturing state state championships
Oh yeah.
played in this place, in like in the winter where playing football is like really hard when
Mm-hmm.
it's like super cold and stuff outside. Playing a state championship in a dome would be awesome.
I also, I mean, I
Mm.
just throwing it out there. I also could see like the Buckeyes playing there, maybe
Yeah, I mean,
for a big
the
game or
if
something. I don't know.
it would host Big Ten championships, it would host I mean imagine uh the yeah like say Ohio State and Michigan playing there for the Big Ten
Yeah, that would be
championship.
kind of nuts. Um, if you build it, they will come. I know. I mean, I mean that's the. I mean, we've already said we'd be all for it, right? I just think that that's like something as sports fans, especially pro sports fans, that you're going to see that debate of you as a fan. It's like, would you want them down to like, for example, the Pirates are in the perfect spot, PNC Park, greatest ballpark in America, a flex. Um, that's one of those sports I wouldn't want to. That's like my favorite venue in sports. The NFL it's different though because of the amount of games. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I think you're gonna help. There's always gonna be that old head debate of no, don't move it out of the city. It also doesn't help that politicians, especially city politicians and city figures, like no one wants to be the politician that let a team move out of the city. You know what I mean? The optics of it are always going to be fought against. So that is
Yeah,
pretty wild though
exactly.
for them to bring up like, hey, we're going to move this law because we consider even doing this as moving the Browns out of Cleveland.
The Browns Twitter, like even the people that like didn't that don't really want them to leave downtown
Yeah,
were like this is a really like bad faith argument
yeah,
that
this
this
is a
guy
stretch, man.
like this is insane. Like never mind the fact that the guys that is trying to do this is the guy that's the only reason the crew are in town or still in Columbus anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
He the Haslams who are trying to do this bought the crew to keep them in Columbus.
Yes.
Like and they built a tremendous stadium in Columbus.
Yeah, they did.
Like these
Love it.
so for what it's worth, I want this to happen because the Haslams know how to build a stadium.
That's true.
They use the architect that built US Bank in Minneapolis.
They don't know how to build a team.
That is true.
At least in the NFL.
But for what I remember seeing to build lower.com field in Columbus, they used the architect that built US Bank in Minneapolis, which by all accounts from multiple people who have opinions about this, US Bank is probably one of the better like domed stadiums that's been built
Oh,
in the last couple of years.
aesthetically, it's one of the coolest stadiums
Yeah.
in sports, in my opinion. Like inside looks gorgeous. The glass,
And
everything.
and from what I've heard from people who have been there, it's a huge dome stadium, but it feels intimate. Like it feels like a smaller, like it doesn't feel quite as open and empty as like some places do. Like Ford Field is a place that's kind of like that to me too, where like it doesn't feel big. Like you're there and it feels relatively small.
Oh
Like
yeah, absolutely.
in a good way,
Incredible home venue.
in a way that like you feel
Yep.
like connected with everybody around you.
Incredible
But
home venue too, by the way.
yeah.
Like as we talked about with all friend of the show James and everything. If the Lions were ever going to be great, that stadium was going to be a problem to play in, and that's exactly what we're at now. So interesting
Anyway,
story, Casen.
yeah. Well, obviously, I will keep you posted with anything that
Please
develops on
do,
that.
and the listeners, please.
Okay, and then I'll try and go quickly here to go through the rest of it. So the last one I had was um the guy who owns what is it? I think a Monumental Sports, the guy who owns the Wizards and the Capitals. He was also in talks of moving them from downtown to build an arena in, I think it was Arlington, and or Alexandria. I can remember it was Virginia, across the river into Virginia, and so people were super mad about that, and there was a ton of litigation uh about it. The mayor of Washington D.C. um was I think threatening like legal action of some sort. And I think Virginia was also making it relatively hard.
I'm like waiting for you
Or
to drop the because they asked for $1 billion.
well, the
That's the theme here.
from my understanding of the situation, not to get, political with this, but the governor of Virginia won the election in a really weird time. And so the governor of Virginia is a Republican who comes from the financial industry. And so he's like Mitt Romney kind of, where he like managed a hedge fund.
Sure.
And so he's like he has a lot of financier friends. And I think this guy who owns Monumental Sports is one of them, Ted Leonosis. So the governor of Virginia, I think, was trying to get this guy to move the team into Virginia. The city did not want them. They didn't want to pay for anything. They didn't want to. I think the city didn't want to screw over DC either. And so I think the city was making it hard. The city of DC was like threatening a ton of, stuff if they left, because they still had a pretty long-term lease that they could not get out of.
Right.
And so it was announced this week that basically he's just giving up and saying, okay, never mind.
Well, what's really fascinating about like obviously not getting into the politics or anything. What is fascinating about having to like switch locations in the DC area is because you are basically between three. You can go the Maryland direction, the Virginia direction, or somehow try to build it in DC, which there's limited space, right? Um, and so yeah, like when you're trying to build like so it's a unique situation where it is, right? Like no, there's not there's other cities like that, like Kansas City between the border of Missouri and Kansas, but there's what I'm trying to say is there's added challenges to building a new stadium at a place like that.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to bring this story up because as the Washington Commanders kind of transition to their new ownership, I would imagine eventually they're going to replace that stadium.
Oh yeah,
And
I mean FedEx Field is one of the worst
yeah, it's in
in
rough shape, and it
sports.
really
Yeah.
needs to like like genuinely they really do need to build a new stadium there. So I
Yeah, and I think they will
this
definitely, but
this
yeah.
pay attention to this story because it's going to dictate potentially of where what direction they go there. And that's
Yeah,
going to be a
and
bigger deal because
so
it's their NFL team.
right. And so I think technically, I mean, as far as the commanders go, I think they might I think are trying to do Virginia because you don't want to go into Maryland and have two football teams in Maryland
Right.
like an hour away from each other. But anyway, um, yeah, so that's that. That was a recurring theme of sports owners, a lot of examples of owners and stadium issues. So
Give us $1 billion or we're moving
it's
your team out of the city.
here's the thing though. Here's the really interesting thing though is that these owners, I don't think have been told like they're not used to being told no
Yeah.
in as much as they used to or as they have not been told no this much before.
Yeah.
Like that,
Historically, this is a different, like you see.
historically,
Yep.
it's like if you want an arena, like or a stadium, you just ask the city for tax money and they give it to you.
Yep.
Like it is very uncommon for the cities to not want to give you money and for taxpayers to not want to give you money
Well,
because
yeah.
based on the circumstances of the economy and things that just the way that things are now you're not going to find a ton of people, taxpayers and citizens, that are just willing to give you a ton of money when they know you can pay for it yourself.
Right. And well, then the statistics have essentially disproven all of the claims that the owners try to make as far as across sports, right? That this will revitalize the area and all this stuff. Like the stats of that are long since debunked. Like that's not a thing. And I think as a society, we've hit like it's actually a good thing. Like we've hit a society and been like no, our sports are not more important than like the public good. You know what I mean? Um, especially when it's professional sports. Rather, like college, usually you can find stuff, and when you got to build new facilities and the funding, because they really, depending on where you went to school, they really try to wait until they absolutely need a replacement, right?
Right,
But
right.
with this, yeah, it just seems like whether it's public defenders, whether it's fans fighting back, in Oakland and other places, um, we're starting to kind of see and move into an era here where yeah, where
I mean,
fans are fighting back.
and for what it's worth, I mean, just my personal opinion, I'm okay with it. I mean,
I like
like
it. It's good.
in the example that I said about Cleveland, they elected a really young new mayor there, Mayor Justin Bibb, and he's really dedicated to trying to solve a lot of the issues that we know plague Cleveland as a city
Sure.
in the heart in the urban areas, and he would prefer to spend that money elsewhere
Absolutely.
rather
And,
than on
and
a
and
stadium.
honestly, I think I mean, like us just sitting here as fans of our teams and just being regular working citizens ourselves, it's a good thing whenever you have something in society that tells people who like the mega rich, hey, do better. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we expect you to do better, please. Come up with another solution. Hey, pay for it yourself. Golden Knights, pay for it yourself if you want to do, Um, Yeah, just do
or at
better.
least 90% yourself.
Yeah, try to
Like,
put as much money of yours on the table for your organization. Don't put it, don't put it on the citizens, especially in Vegas, if they don't want you.
right.
So,
Okay.
was that the six pack?
That was five. The
Okay,
we'll make this last one quick just because this isn't really
doesn't have to
related
be
to
quick.
anything. It's a story that came out in the last couple days that I thought was insane. So going back in time, I don't know if you've ever heard of or seen the these Amazon these Amazon stores. They were really only ever in like San Francisco or large, huge areas or metropolitan areas. But there are these Amazon stores where you could just pick stuff off the shelf, it
And
like
walk out.
and
Yeah,
walk
yeah.
out. And when they first came out like 10 years ago, there was like an SNL skit about it. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But so these Amazon stores came out, they never really like became that like huge, but people were like, this is kind of crazy technology. It came out recently in the last couple of days that they were claiming that this was all like AI generated. It knew your account, it did all this stuff. There was no AI involved in that process. What was ended up happening was Amazon hired like 1,000 people in India to watch security feeds of these stores and then keep a record of what you were buying and then charge it on the back end.
So it
So
was
they were
always
like,
manual.
it was always a manual process.
Wow.
And so essentially what happened was they made this store, touted it as this AI driven concept of the future, hired manual like labor to do the work.
They just straight up lied.
They did it with the plan of them being able to figure out the AI as
Oh,
technology
I
got
see.
more evolved, and then they would like actually be able to do it. But the technology never happened. Like they never were able to figure it out. And then I think they ended up getting caught, and like somebody realized this, so they just shut the whole thing down, and they're just going away.
Wow. Were these stores existing this entire time?
I think yeah, I mean I don't know, I think so, I have no idea, but it's an absolutely
That is pretty
insane
wild.
story.
That is pretty wild just because I mean it makes sense though, right? Because we're only kind of just now seeing what AI can all do. And you're telling me 10 years ago you had the technology to do that? Like no way. Of course you didn't. Um yeah, and unless there was something that was keeping a direct record of everything in the store and charging you after the fact. I do remember a journalist did an experiment where he attempted to walk out and not pay, and he still was able to get charged via his account. So it's like, well, I guess it does work, but makes sense that they were manually keeping track of it because you'd have to. So um,
Yeah.
I always
So
kind of thought, why does Amazon need a store? And I think they
I
finally understood. Yeah, why do we need to do this?
yeah. Yeah, I
For
think it
Amazon.
was like it was I think mostly like a corner store that like you would like just like stuff you would want to be able to get right then.
Convenience store.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. But
Yep.
anyway, I thought that was a crazy story, and I wanted to bring that up.
That's like when they had the buttons you could place around the house where you'd hit the
Yeah.
button and it would automatically order. It's like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
all fun and games until like your 3-year-old comes in and hits that button like 50 times.
Yeah, it also like did not serve any purpose because it takes 4 seconds to go and do it in the app. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't,
exactly. So it's like
and then
another one of
you
those
have to
things.
pay for this button that just reduces. Yeah, that's why they stopped those because it just doesn't. It yeah.
The convenience was not necessarily better than what they already had. So
Right.
well, that was quite the six pack, Casen. That was good. Yes, so the recurring theme. That was interesting, and I think there's also added interest anytime like the bells and whistles, like your team could get a shiny new toy, so to speak, new place to go. So we'll see. Uh, check your office polls and check your things of who's the next NFL team to get a new stadium because it really could be anybody. Um, the
Hmm.
sound of things. So
I mean, there's a lot of teams in works.
yeah, oh, absolutely. So I have on here briefly discussing the end of This Is March because it is now April.
Yeah.
And we officially have 4 teams left in the men, 4 teams left in the women. I actually want to start just by briefly addressing it was awesome to see let's start with the women's side just to talk about that. awesome to see Iowa LSU draw 12.3 million viewers and live up to the hype in a lot of in a lot of
I
ways.
yeah, I don't know if you pulled this, but the like comparing that viewership, I believe that was more than last year's Masters. It was like it
Every
is
Major League
it
Baseball game,
yeah, it was that was probably right. I don't know if it
every
said it for sure. Yeah, that was the most watched women's sport.
most watched women's sporting event ever.
Yeah.
And which is awesome because I actually believe, like, we send each other TikToks here and there. I am more interested in the women's bracket this year, hands down. It's more interesting to see if Caitlin Clark can do this. We got the rematch, LSU, Iowa. Iowa got through. And now you've got all four teams. You got the I don't have it right in front of me. UConn's left, Iowa's left.
Uh
Help me out because I'm more interested in that game than anything else.
yeah, very true. NC State and South Carolina.
That's right, NC State.
That
Shout out NC State, men's and women's basketball in the Final Four, man.
so for yeah, NC State and South Carolina are playing in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the first time in history that there are two different programs with a men's and women's basketball team in the Final Fours at the same time. UConn and NC State both have teams in the Final Four. UConn did it last year.
Right. And before you ask, yes, it has happened before where the men and women win in the same year, and it was UConn. It's the last to do that.
Yeah, that's what I say. This is the first time there were two teams
And they
with it. Yep.
legitimately have a chance to probably do that again this year. Gonna be harder to do on the women's side, though. Because honestly, I think Dan Hurley's boys are just gonna run over anyone they play, as they have all year. And quite frankly, it's more interesting to see if Caitlin Clark can do this and cap off her incredible career than it is seeing one of the arguable blue bloods win again by 30
Yeah.
points.
So I don't want to like get too deep into the weeds with this, but I'm really curious to see your thoughts on like they've tried to market, women's basketball for a long time, and it seems like this is the first time it's really taken off.
Mhm.
Like Caitlin Clark is a character that like people are wanting to watch, and the viewership is there to watch her. Like 12 million people watched her versus Kim Mulkey or Angel Reese because they wanted to see those characters battle it out. And so this seems like the first time that they've really been able to figure out how to market these people. Why do you think they couldn't quite get it done with people like Sabrina or Brianna Stewart, or I mean, name the any number of people who we know, but maybe weren't quite as big of household names as Caitlin
Like the
Clark
Sue
is.
Birds of the year of the Rebecca Lobo or any of those
Right,
legends
right.
or any of the legends that played for Pat Summit, Lady Falls. Um, you know what? Great question. I had this I had a similar discussion with someone over the weekend, right? And I really, really believe that all of the personalities and these characters and people have always been there. Even in the days where it was domination between the days of younger Gino Oriema and Pat Summit, because they famously kind of had a beef. Um, shout out Secret Base for the beef history video on that one. I think the coverage of it is just way better now. I think once by force you finally had equal amenities for the women's and men's tournaments, which we should have always had, period. Um, and you had the means to watch every single game. People finally said, "Oh wow, like there's great personalities, great players in the women's game as well," and they've always been there. I just think that the coverage and marketing of it is now so much better because everything is equalized in terms of like the coverage and everything
Mm-hmm.
that when an undoubtedly amazing player like a Caitlin Clark comes around, there's it's easier to actually cover her career now. It's easy to follow her career rather, uh, and pull out those matchups like Paige Beckers and your Cam Brinks and the star power has always been there. I just think we're finally at a spot where the coverage is there and people are paying attention. That's honestly That's honestly how I feel about it. I mean, any
That's
thoughts
fair.
on any of
That makes
that?
sense. No, I mean, I think yeah, I mean Sabrina wasn't even that long ago, but it
Mm-mm.
definitely feels like there's a lot more resources dedicated to actually, covering women's sports like that.
Yeah, and I'm not even
Than
kidding
even
when I
just 5 years ago.
I'm not even kidding though when I say that now with the collection of these players that are about to enter the WNBA, that league is about to potentially have its golden age, like we've never seen yet. Because does that make me want to absolutely follow the WNBA more? Yes, absolutely. And I know I'm not alone. Uh, so I just I that that's honestly what I think. I don't necessarily think it's that anyone is it's any less or more marketable now. I just think that finally as a society we're taking notice because that coverage is there, you know. So
That's fair.
and so that being said, again, I'll say it. I am more interested in seeing how the Final Four on the women's side completes than the men. Just because the one thing I would be rooting for is for NC State men to do this as an 11 seed because shout out the late great Jimmy V. They are, trust me, man. The people are partying down here like it's 1983. I mean, it's cool. For a
Mhm.
while there, two things were happening for the first time since 1983. Um, the NC State men's basketball going on another survive and advance run, and the Pittsburgh Pirates were 5-0. Totally, completely unrelated because the Pirates finally lost yesterday, Wednesday. Shout out the Detroit Tigers, still currently the only unbeaten team in Major League Baseball.
That's crazy.
But anyway, not to shift. I mean, anything to really say about the men's side that you haven't said?
Yeah, well, I think the um main thing to really bring up is uh UConn. So UConn had a ton of issues getting to Arizona.
Yeah, that's right.
That they were, I think, supposed to leave around 6 o'clock Eastern Wednesday night, and they didn't end up getting into Phoenix until I think 6 in the morning Thursday. So they had to wait for a ton of planes, and then there was I think there was a plane. I think their plane that was supposed to get to, I think stores, I think is where they were taking off from, or wherever around there, was coming from Chicago, and their crew couldn't make it because they exceeded the hours. So they were waiting on additional crew, and there was a ton of other stuff. But yeah, so they didn't end up leaving Connecticut until I'm sure close to 2 in the morning.
That's interesting.
So
I mean, people don't realize. I mean, all of the chartered airlines. This is like the busiest time of the year for them, obviously, right? Um, that being said, hey, safety first, right? But to our knowledge, they've made it safe.
yeah, they're there now.
Every picture I've seen of Dan
Um,
Hurley, he just looks awesome with like
yeah,
the backwards champion regional hat and like all those guys like rocking with all their gear and stuff. I'm like, man, travel takes a lot out of you, but this team's going to show
yeah.
up. They
I
might be tired, but they're
from
still going to win by 30.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it looks like the NCAA is adjusting some stuff as far as media availability and things like that to accommodate maybe their sleep schedule, trying to get caught back up from getting in there late. So
Yeah,
I
makes
don't
sense.
think they did I haven't seen anything that they're gonna like change the games. But yeah, so
As of
that's that.
now, no, they're both still on April 6th. First game, NC State Purdue's at 6:09 p.m. and the UConn Alabama will be right after it. So
Yeah, so I think it definitely does help that the UConn Alabama game's the last game, prime
right,
time. So
and if that's starting by Eastern time, it'll be like six something there. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So that's going to be interesting to see again. Uh, it is going to be interesting. I do end up kind of hoping it's UConn and NC State. So I have like full on rooting interest
mhm.
in it. And like I said, Purdue is going to absolutely try to do what Virginia did the year after they lost to 16.
Yeah,
So keep
absolutely.
your eyes on that. In other news, baseball has returned, Casen. I am I
Yeah.
love this time of year. I love this time of year. And by the way, my phone's been going off here because it's 6 o'clock now by the time we're recording this. The Pirates are playing right now. Actually, my Pittsburgh Pirates are playing. They're up 5-1 in the third inning. But I think obviously we talked about the Ohtani situation. There's been no real updates with that.
Mhm.
Uh, I think your regular players like Dodgers, Rangers are going to be in the mix. Any thoughts on the opening of baseball season, Casen?
Um,
We're not going to
yeah, I
do a
mean,
we're not going to do a formal preview on this show. That wasn't on the agenda yet. But
right. Yeah, I mean, I think I was relatively pleasantly surprised to see, the Guardians relatively start okay, but they were playing, the A's. So can't really say much about that. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're I mean, just see if I can find the standings real quick here.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it looks like it's really tough to get a read on some of these things on like what they mean.
Yeah, we're 5 games in. I
Because like
mean,
like we've talked about it, like within the top of the league is Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, which is just like
raise the roof.
yeah, we'll see how the standings look in July.
The
But
dog days of August, man.
yeah, I mean they're starting off hot. I mean the Mets have not won yet.
Nope.
So the Mets are still the Mets. I mean the Astros are 2-5. So just like I mean how much can we, really look into this? I think the bigger story with baseball so far all season, I think so far has been again the uniforms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's really like the only thing people want to talk about.
Yeah, they I'll be honest, they really really have dropped the ball on this one. I I mean, I'm interested because I'm wondering how the players feel. You haven't had a lot of players like actually
Mhm.
talk about it. I would be interested to ask, like, if I was like a reporter, I'd be like, "What are your guys' opinions on the uniforms? Like, are they? I mean, because if they come out and say we like them because they breathe more or this, that, or the other, but I haven't seen a single gray one look good. But the sweat stains and like all this stuff, and they don't they're too revealing too,
I
and
mean, the from what I can tell, it's not uncommon for there to be uniform issues. Like I think Nike made them before, right? I think
yeah,
that's who. Yeah. So I think when they switched to Nike, Nike had issues making them. There was a lot of issues. I think when Adidas took over the NHL jerseys, there were a lot of issues when Nike took over the NBA jerseys about 10 years ago. Like for some, so I think that there maybe is some recency bias and some memory holding of actually like what it is to switch jerseys, but I still don't understand why that's the case. Like I remember when the NBA switched to Nike jerseys and like three jerseys like ripped off the court or they like ripped on the court, like somebody tugged on a jersey or they got their jersey tugged and like just ripped in half.
like
And
paper,
pe-
yeah.
and we were like, what? Like those issues eventually went away, but it's just kind of like, why? Like, what is the research and development in these jerseys? Like,
Well,
why? Like, do you not know how to make a jersey?
when now it's Fanatics, right? That's taken over
Yeah.
for Major League Baseball. I think part of it is you're right. Part of it is just the fact that it's a new company and they're just trying to get it because until games start, you don't really know how the uniforms are going to go, right? You know what I mean? And you collect that data, and it's such a long season that I do think adjustments can be made. But at the same time, you know where this comes from. They're all trying to pinch with the gear and stuff to get as low as it is to maximize the amount of margins for what you can charge.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that's the case with the actual in-game stuff these guys are supposed to wear too.
Right. And so I think, I
It's
mean, I
wild.
think like I'm not saying that they're, that they're, aren't deserving of being criticized because I think Fanatics is particular where it definitely feels like Fanatics has been throwing out these fan jerseys
Yeah.
to the players. And then it's just like, here, wear this. So I don't know if they just had been giving them fan jerseys as here and then just seeing
Here's
how they need to be changed for
here's a
players.
replica. Go out there and play a Major League Baseball game.
Yeah.
I got a
And so
slide and the dirt's gonna rip my whole jersey off.
I don't know. Like it I don't know if I mean the part that confuses me is it seems like all of these companies do this and they make them cheaply at first and then fix them later.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why they like why can't they just make them right the first time?
Yeah,
Like
true.
like why do you have to make them, you know,
Why do we have to
look
go through this?
look and like hold up really poorly and then
Have our favorite
eventually
teams look awful.
yeah, eventually figure out how to back into them being better. Like I don't get that.
Yeah, I do think it'll be rectified this year just because it's such a long season. Like I said, hopefully it'll become less and less of a story. Because if the second people are noticing, you've already kind of lost.
Yeah.
If no one notices and the uniforms look great, well then you did a good job. Um, so we'll see. I mean, just be wary when you go to buy that gear now, folks. That's what I'd say. Like as I wear a City Connect hat from last year. So I don't know. Anyway, um, let me see here. Uh, obviously it's early. You said we got a few divisions that look the way they look, and we'll see how it shakes out. Right? We'll see how it shakes out. We are going to do I do want to do like a baseball show at some point. If it's not our next show or the show after that, we'll dive into it and we'll do like a real preview. Hopefully, get Jim Nye, the baseball guy, back in here to educate us more on the great game. But I love this time of year personally. Love baseball. It's always relaxing, and quite frankly, like it's so nice like being able to watch your team like every night. It's great. Um, yeah. So you got any other weeks to wrap this
Yeah,
show up, man?
so I've got a let's go court of the week. Um and that goes to the uh Portland Regional Court for the women's basketball tournament. I don't know
Oh boy.
if yeah. So apparently it was figured out what Saturday, I think it was that the basketball court in Portland at the regional site was not marked correctly to where the 3-point line on one side did not match the 3-point line on the other side. That there was the way they assembled the court, they mark where the top of the arc is supposed to be, and that got
Yep.
marked incorrectly. And so the angle of the arc was not correct, was not right. Uh I don't know how, but they somehow missed that for an entire day. Like they were like two games played on it on Friday that nobody noticed. Um and like if you look at the court from like center court, if you look at it, you can like from overhead, you can see that there's like another 3 feet above the top of the key
Yeah,
from
like
where
you
the
could
top
see.
of the arc
I'm
is.
like you can see on the broadcast that it's not correct. You
Like
guys
it's
like
just like you just look
who
at it, you're like, that's not right.
who did this? Yeah, who's responsible for this?
So
Who's
I'm more confused with who didn't notice Friday. Like how did one coach not go out there and be like, that's really weird, or player or anybody?
I don't know. I mean, when I the part of that story that I can see, like a lot of people will say, like you said, like how do you not notice that? But then again, when you arrive as the team and players and stuff, you expect the people putting it on, the organizers, to have all their stuff together, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have everything correct and stuff. And so you're not necessarily worried about the small details of that. So the fact that it took like games being played on it for someone to notice or point it out um, is not all that surprising. When I saw that story, like you probably did, I rolled my eyes. I was like, can we somehow again can we continue to get things equal and everything right in the women's tournament, please? I mean,
I mean, this would never happen in the men's tournament.
no, it
Like
would not.
just flat out, it would never happen.
It's not like, and it's not even cliche to say that like it wouldn't happen, and that's absurd to me. Um, so anyway, I don't know. Forcing Caitlin Clark to continue draining threes from the parking lot like she
Yeah,
can.
it's just absurd. Like I mean, like I don't get how there are so little like I can understand maybe if you're like on the floor and it's hard to tell perspectives from like being right there, but if you're putting it on, how do you not just look over from and just be like, oh, well, that's weird.
Overseeing this. game.
I mean my theory
Things were not checked.
my theory is that the people who were putting it on noticed when the court got there and they realized they couldn't fix it in time, and they were just like, well,
Hopefully, no one notices.
hopefully nobody notices. I mean, like, we don't want to pay for another one.
As they should have.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So
It's
they ended up
ridiculous.
playing. So that game was it the South Carolina? What was the game they noticed it
I
during?
think it
Was
was
it?
South Carolina. Yeah.
So they noticed it during the game, and then they decided to finish the game,
Hmm.
and then they overnight before the games on Sunday they painted it to fix it,
Yeah.
and then it was, I guess, correct after that. But yeah, I,
Wild.
that's crazy.
I have an acquisition of the week, Casen.
I think I know what this
Oh
is,
yeah, and it goes to the to Texas to the Texans,
and it goes to
Houston
the yeah.
Texans, straight up. Stephon Diggs, obviously, dealt from the Bills to a team flat out that's like trending in a better direction. I told you this yesterday.
Yeah.
Thoughts? You know, I just I the Bills. I mean, my goodness.
I mean, I think so for what Stefan Diggs is now, I think that was probably a fair compensation package.
I agree.
I mean, it because there's a lot of question marks over, like, is he going to be able to handle like being a teammate in Houston? Like, can he, resolve some of those issues, maybe playing somewhere else? And because of his lack of production in Buffalo recently, is he still good? So I think, settling for, I think it was a two and it was a 2 and a 5 and 6, I think. Um, so that seems fair. For him maybe not being the type of caliber player that we thought he was when he left Minnesota. But
And and I mean, shout out front of the show, Matt, who was on last week. Um, the sending a few tweets our direction that are indicating that things I think were a little bit more toxic in that locker room with him there than the team. I mean, props to the team for keeping it quiet, if that's true.
yeah, I think, I mean, I don't think this was really discussed as much as people commented when the trade happened to begin with,
Mm-mm.
but I think he absolutely hated Buffalo. Um, I mean, can't say I really blame him.
I
It's
think it's soured over
Buffalo.
time. I think it's
I
soured over
think
time.
well, I just mean the city. Like, I think he hated living
Oh,
in Buffalo.
okay.
I think he hated, like, I mean, I would imagine living in Houston, weather, no state income tax. I think he would appreciate that. And so maybe the situation, and along with CJ Stroud and um the coaching staff there, if Stefan can't like this locker room, then he just needs to retire, because he's not a player that belongs to this league. He's gone the full Odell, if he can't get along in this locker room.
I agree.
But
It's
going to the other side of this situation, Buffalo.
Buffalo
So
Bills.
I think this leaves, like, Khalil Shakur as their best wide receiver on the roster right now. I like who? So clearly they're probably going to maybe move up a little bit to get, one of the best receivers in this class.
I saw someone
Um,
yesterday put out the Josh Allen on every offensive play next year, and it's just his running touchdown against
yeah.
the Steelers. I'm like, yeah. I mean, so right
Yeah.
now, I
Um,
mean,
honestly, to me, like, this is tough. I mean, I will pair this with, um officially window closed and locked shut of the week goes to Buffalo.
goes to the Bills, Super
Yeah,
Bowl
I
champions.
mean, and again, I feel for the fans. Like, we both know what they've gone through in the 90s, 4 straight Super Bowls and losing all 4 of them. Uh
obviously all happened before we were born, but it still blows my mind that actually happened.
Yeah.
Like those of you that lived through it, like like I can't even imagine a team nowadays four times, four times, and you lose all four. And whenever I watch the documentary Four Falls of Buffalo, I find it incredible that going into the fourth one, like everyone expected them to lose. Everyone, like literally, was like, "Oh no, we're gonna go through this again." Like, there was no hope at all, and you'd think and hope that like, hey, let's put this narrative finally to bed, and no, they lose again.
I mean, honestly, they probably lost the fourth one because they lost the last three.
Right, and also they don't make it to four in a row without losing prior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they win one of those times, they're not going back to the Super Bowl like
Right.
consecutively, regardless of how good they were. Um, so I mean, but anyway, yeah, Buffalo. I
So yeah, I mean, so now Buffalo has basically no offensive weapons, and I, well, outside of Josh, and Josh, who I think is making 50 some $1 million a year,
Yep,
um, and a defense that is old and injured and like is just not quite as good as what
is the
they.
reason they continue to lose games partially
Right, right.
in playoffs in January, I should say. Um, so anyway, yeah, okay, keep your eyes on that. It's gonna be it's gonna be what it'll be for fans, but definitely
I again, I think this comes back to what we said before. Josh Allen is Philip Rivers.
mm,
Like, I mean, the Bills are the new Chargers. Like, I mean, he's going to be wasting away in Buffalo with nobody around him.
it is gonna be fascinating to see like if he can ever get over the hump. It probably isn't going to be there. Um, and his
Yeah,
best chance there might have just really slammed shut.
yeah.
Um, so I really don't. I hope that doesn't happen. But especially with the existence of Mahomes and the guys as well as we've talked before.
I mean, it's weird to say, but the Bengals are in an infinitely better position than the Bills
Mm-hmm.
because I mean they have Jamar, they
Mm-hmm.
have I mean they have more weapons, so they're already as long as Burrow can stay healthy, they're in a better position.
Yeah.
So
That was the only of the week I had this week because I was kind of waiting on the short six pack. So if you've got another one, let it roll.
yeah, I mean I think that was all I wanted to bring up because we've been talking long enough.
We
But
have like my I can almost collectively give like a you know fleecing of the week to all of the to every owner in all of professional sports. That's like based on just the theme of the short six pack. But once
um
again, hey, we thank everybody for listening, watching, however you tune in. Let us know your of the weeks. Let us know your reaction to really anything we talked about in short six pack because we know you have opinions out there, and those of us who share them. Any words, Casen?
uh I guess I'll say uh let's all root against Purdue this weekend.
Let's go. Go. What is it like? Na 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 na. Go State, right? Again, shout out Jimmy V. Very very cool. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, watching, tuning in. We appreciate you. This is Kellan,
This is Casen.
and we'll see you as always at the next stop.